Hello, everybody. It's Pastor Tom welcoming you to another study in the Word. So good to be with you, and I'm excited to be with you today and hope that you're doing well. We're going to share with you today about raising children or raising kids in troubled times. This will be our third session. This is troubling times that we're living in, and to raise children can be a challenge. But if we do it biblically, we have the ammunition we need to be victorious. So I would like you to turn to Ephesians chapter 6 with me today. And by the way, if at all possible, if you could go to our website, faithalivefellowship.org, after we're done today, or maybe sometime this week, faithalivefellowship.org, you'll find that we have seminars there that are free. You can go to the free seminars pages, lots of teaching. Hop over to our YouTube pages. Of course, you're on one now. Our Twitter pages, so on and so forth, all the information. And we'd appreciate you praying about becoming a partner with us, and you can do that right there. You can give right online there at faithalivefellowship.org. And also, if you like this teaching, or you like these teachings, or these things that I'm sharing, please share them and subscribe to our channel. Right underneath, you can subscribe. Go to our playlist. There's all kinds of different subjects that we deal with on these teachings, and we go into pretty much great detail. It's ongoing as we add them to be a blessing to you. And in most of the time, we do half an hour, 20 minutes to a half an hour segments on these. Sometimes less, sometimes more, a little bit more. But anyway, there's plenty there to feed you, and that's what we're all about. So Ephesians chapter 6 today, and I'm going to read verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Vital. Absolutely vital verse to understand. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Of course, this is being written to born-again, Spirit-filled parents and supposedly born-again, Spirit-filled children, and because it's written to Christians. You can't expect the world to do this, but he's writing to Christians. So it's important that you understand that he's talking to people that are in the Lord here. And so children, obey your parents in the Lord, right? If parents are asking their children to do things, which does happen today, unfortunately more and more, that are not scriptural, not biblical, then certainly a child would not need to obey that. But it's very unfortunate what's going on in society today. But for Christians, Spirit-filled Christians, children need to learn to obey their parents, for this is right. And there's blessing involved in it. Now, children need to know who's in charge. Actually, this word here, obey, is a very important word, because this word here, obey, is a military term. It is literally a term that talks about learning the military way of authority and submission. You know, if you're a general, then the colonels are submitted to you, right? But if you're a colonel, the majors will be have to submit to you. But a captain, right, would be submitted to a major. So the major would be an authority sometimes, and the major would be under authority sometimes. And it's very important in life to understand the principle of authority and submission. And this is what he's talking about here. This word obey is a military term that talks about learning the act of submission. The child needs to know that the parents are in charge, right? And too many parents are allowing their children to run over them and be in charge. And I see it all the time. It's terrible. And that is something that you need to start doing from infancy. I mean, soon as they start learning how to crawl and eat and everything else, they're going to start trying to push your buttons by crying and everything else. I mean, those little children, believe me, they'll take what they can get. And because of the human nature, that flesh, it begins to start to crop up, and they're going to try to get things. So you need to know how to teach them to obey, all right? It's a strong military term. Understand authority and submission. They are the pupil, you are the teacher. And we need to be constant in our communication, teaching, learning, understanding this thing and obeying. They need to know who's in charge. They need to know that the parents, praise God, are the ones that are protecting them by teaching them to obey what is right and wrong. And that's the way you do it. You know, you let them know this is good, this is bad, this is the rule. We go by the rule. When you break the rule, there's consequences, and the rules are for a reason. They're good to protect us, to keep us safe, and as soon as they can understand those things, we need to start communicating to them that over and over. We have rules here that need to be followed, and the reason for it is in life. You're going to have to learn how to submit. You're going to have to learn how to follow the rules. You're going to have to learn how to be obedient, because you're going to have to learn to submit, whether it be in a job, whether it be at school, whether it be, in church, whatever it is. There's times where you're going to be an authority maybe, and times where you're going to have to learn how to submit. Now remember, parents, you are the teacher and they are the pupil. That's what this word also means. So there is a time of learning in the word obedience. You can't be obedient to something where there's not a challenge to be obedient, or there's not rules to be obedient. You see what I'm saying? So there needs to be a constant communication between both parents, the man and the woman. This is important. The husband, the wife have to communicate, and they have to be excellent communicators with their children, both. Children need input from dad. Children need input from mom. Mom and dad need to communicate so that they can make sure that they're on the same page with the child. Both parents really should discipline, not just one. And so they learn how to obey their parents. Now, when we learn to obey our parents, we are constantly letting our children know that the obedience is for their own protection, for their own good. They're going to learn to obey their teachers, their pastors, their police, their bosses. If you don't, there's negative consequences. And you discuss these things with your children. Raising children in an insane world like this today, the children, there's a spirit of rebellion that's everywhere out there. And so it's really, really important from a very early age they learn why obedience is important. This needs to be a main subject, and that's why he's talking about this, and that's why he uses the word obey. Now notice it says, obey your parents, and again I'm going to emphasize, your parents, plural, mom and dad. Of course, if you don't have one of the parents there, there's nothing you can do about that, but the parents that are there, and hopefully mom and dad, both parents need to be obeyed, and therefore both parents need to intimately be involved in communicating with their children. It is a proven fact that a man that raises a little girl that has a proper relationship with the little girl, but an intimate relationship in the sense of being able to communicate, being able to give her what she needs emotionally, being able to let her know that she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but with loving discipline, that little girl probably is going to not be a promiscuous little teenager. The opposite is true if the dad is never there, has to work all the time, never communicates, is not a good communicator. And I would exhort the fathers out there, listen to me. You got to do whatever it takes to learn how to communicate with your wife if you're going to be successful, and with your children. No excuses. Stop making excuses. You might be a person who's very shy. You might be somebody who is very passive, but you're going to have to step up to the plate and be a leader. You've got to force yourself, and you have to ask God to help you if you're the type of person that has a hard time with that, because it's imperative that both mom and dad instruct, love, and discipline at times. All right? Very important. They need both. Mom has a certain perspective and dad has a certain perspective, because they're male and females. And there's certain things in life that dad has dealt with, and certain things in life that mom has dealt with, that can add wisdom to little children. And you'll be surprised how much they can learn from you. But so understand that your job is to, yes, they need to be obedient to you, and there needs to be certain rules that they need to go by and certain things that you do. But your main job really is to Not just discipline, but to teach them about why something is right, why something is wrong, why we do it this way, how come that can be dangerous. You know, you don't touch the stove because it can burn you. You don't run out in the street because there's cars that go by there and they're bigger than you are and they could run over your toes and squash them, But you don't need to breed fear in them, but you need to make them understand there are certain things that are dangerous to do that you need to, follow the rules on. Why, when you get a car, you need to drive a certain way. This needs to be hammered into them when they're young, because if not, there could be tragedy. This was one of the reasons children not obeying, that they don't live long on the earth. We'll talk about that as we go. But if not obeyed, there's consequences. When obeyed, we need positive rewards, positive reinforcement, and maybe even some extra fun. So good activities and obedience should be rewarded. Bad activities and obedience should be disciplined. And after the discipline is over, there needs to be a communication about why they were disciplined and why you did it, because you did it because you love them. They need to learn a lesson. If they don't learn a lesson, this could be what happens down the road when they begin to break the obedient factors, the authority factors, the submissive factors. If a child is unruly, if sent to the room for a timeout, a toy is taken away from them, sometimes it's good that you do all of those things for a while, and if they start crying, let them cry it out. They do not get out of it because they cry loud, they scream loud, they holler loud, they slam their fists against the door and throw a tantrum. Tantrums and crying and all of that kind of stuff need to be squashed immediately. And I know a lot of parents yield to that and say, I can't take it anymore. They're too loud in there. They keep screaming. If I pick them up, they'll stop screaming. You just bit the bullet there. You just taught them that if they make enough commotion, they scream and yell enough, that they can win. And let me tell you what, some kids and some little children got a tough little will, and they will touch you to the bone. But you're going to have to draw a line in the sand. They're not going to win this thing. Because if you do it enough times, eventually their will begin to submit, and they begin to understand, if I do that, it's not going to do any good anyway. I'm still going to get punished. I'll get punished harder, longer, more. I won't get my toy. I won't get my fun time. But if I do what's right, then there's rewards. I get to play. I get to do fun things. I get to eat ice cream with mom and dad. That's how you train children. And that's what they know. So, if a child is unruly, then you have to punish them. But you always punish the right way. You don't punish them the wrong way. You don't abuse your children, of course. But when I talk about punishment, it depends on the child. Some children, you can look at them, just look at them, and they'll fold like a deck of cards. I have grandkids, people I call grandkids. I got this one, not really my granddaughter, but we treat her like it. Her name is Joselle. That's Melissa and Joel, for all those who know our ministry, know Melissa and Joel's little child. Joselle, I've been intimately acquainted with Joselle since she was born, since she was an infant. They call me Grandma, she and Grandpa. We're just like grandparents to them. They love us. But, Joselle is a very sensitive little child, and for the most part, she's human, but for the most part, Joselle, you don't have to chastise her too much. You just look at her and you just raise your voice a little bit and point at her, and I'll tell you what, she's repentant and crying because she's sensitive. So for her, the discipline would be pretty easy. But then if you have a little boy like Ethan, who might be a little bit more rambunctious in the family, it might take more. He might be a little bit more stubborn. You might need to work on him a little bit more. It's worth the work because you're supposed to train them to obey what's right and what is wrong. There is an order in the family. Mommy and daddy are in charge. You're not. And this is how it is in life. You're always going to have to learn to obey people, whether it be your boss, whether it be the pastor, whether it be somebody at school, your teachers, and so on. There's going to be situations with grandma and grandpa that you need to obey, with aunt and uncle that you need to obey, and you need to teach them that it is for your own good that you do so, and this is why. One of the greatest things you can do when you discipline your children is after there's a forgiveness established, maybe they need to pray because they were bad, they sinned. You get it right with God, you get it right with mommy and daddy. Then you hug them and you sit down and you love on them and tell them that you love them. And the reason that you disciplined one was this, this, and this. That is one of the best times of teaching, because when they have been chastised, they've cried a little bit or whatever they have been, has been happening there, and they know they were wrong. Right after that, it seems to me that they have a contrite spirit, and that is the time where we can really instruct them about why we had to do what we had to do and why obedience is important. You also need to let them know as soon as you possibly can that when little children learn to be rebellious to their parents, that spirit of rebellion will get in them and cause them to want to react that way in society as they grow. And many little children, when they grow up into adults, because they have a rebellious spirit, things will happen to them, end up in jail. Some of them will end up doing things they should not do and get in trouble with drugs or alcohol or all kinds of things like that. Many of them end up in gangs. Sometimes they end up with the wrong people at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes they drive too fast and they end up in a car accident, maybe even die because they were rebellious, because they broke the speed laws, because they didn't listen. They drove while they're under the influence. And those things are things to start training your children about before they ever get in a car, way before that, when they're little children. This is why we have rules in society, because this is what happens if people break the rules. So obedience is very important. Teach them about the Ten Commandments. Teach them about how to learn how to obey God's word. And when we don't, how it can destroy and has destroyed many children and has destroyed many lives. One of the greatest things we can do to our children is give them chores. Give them something to do, because unless they have something to do, a chore, they're told they can't obey it. They can't obey something if they don't have something to do. As an example, your job is to make the bed. If they don't ever have a job to make the bed, then they don't have anything to do. So if you give them the chore to make the bed, then they have to be obedient. They have to choose to obey or not to obey. If they obey, it's good. If not, it's not good. But you must follow up on that. So small little chores, pick up your toys, learn from the earliest age. You need to teach them after they're done playing. They must pick up their toys. I will help you, yes, sometimes, but you're going to help me. You're going to start picking them up. Come on, pick that up. Put it over here. This is where we put our toys. We put them away after we're done. If you do that from an early age and you're consistent at it, they start learning the pattern that, okay, I can play, I can do this and have fun, but then I need to clean it up. You know, if we are doing Play-Doh or whatever, then we clean up. We don't just do Play-Doh and mommy and daddy clean up. We all clean up. I clean up. If I'm going to play, then I have to clean up. That becomes part of it. And they understand that in life, they're going to have to do that. They need to do it now. So they need chores. They need to be more advanced as the older they get. There needs to be a lot of positive reinforcements too. When they do something good, maybe it's a high five. That was awesome. You did awesome. Give them a high five. Make it fun. Give them a good hug. Give them a special treat. Sometimes a special fun time, because man, the way you cleaned up your toys today, that was so good. I remember that. Let's have some ice cream. Let's sit down and have some ice cream. Let's sit down and watch a little program they like, whatever. And so there you go. These things can be small things, you think, over a period of time, though. These small things that we're talking about here are absolutely things that will give them the benefit of learning the obedience to God, His commands, obedience to small things. We go to church. Obedience in giving our tithes and offerings. If they get $1 or 10 cents, goes into the church. When you start that from an early age and that's put within them, they got a whole lot better chance of being excellent citizens in the kingdom of God, and a whole lot better chance of having a child that sticks with the things of God, becomes a good citizen, and doesn't cause you grief. Well, I've enjoyed myself, but I've run out of time here today in this session. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have, please share this video with somebody. Share it with 10 people. And remember our website, faithalifefellowship.org. We love you. And remember this. This is Pastor Tom. Feed your faith, starve your doubts to death. Until next time, God bless you.